All right. Hey, everybody. We are back here at No Fear, the podcast that explores the boundaries of courage and fear. I am Pete Pepe, one of the co-founders of 3777. And I have the great pleasure of having the other two co-founders with me today. My partners in crime, Mr. Eros Sapanen to my left and Mr. Jeb Corliss straight in front of me. All right. Today is going to be a heavy-duty one. I think Jeb's been looking forward to this for quite some time. Our subject today is none other than death. All right, to kick it off, I'm going to hand it over to Eero to get things started.
Yes, so today we're going to be talking about the greatest fear for the entire humankind, and that's our own mortality. Jeb and I have been living dangerously for like 3 decades now. And it's a miracle that we're alive. Like it really is for everything that we've gone through. But along our journey, we've lost good friends and family members through the type of sports we've taken, through drugs, to even murders, mental issues. So like we have to encounter a lot of death and dying, unfortunately. But because of these experiences, they kind of formed our philosophy and a mindset how we see death and dying. And this has been, I've been traveling for 30 years. It has been our favorite conversation, and to be more specific, Jeb's my favorite conversation. and when it's Jeb's favorite conversation, like I also participate and really enjoy. Like it has really defined our friendship is our conversations of what is being alive and what is to die. And probably one of the main purpose of this podcast was to do this specific episode. Like I wanted to hear the gold that that comes from your mouth related to your perspective of just being alive and death. So without further ado, but before actually we go here, I want to suggest a friendly game. So it's a drinking game. So let's see how far you guys get. So every time Jeb is going to mention death or dying, you'll have to take a drink, and let's see how many times you need to use the toilet. So
I have a feeling that if they do that, they'll die by the end of the episode.
That's one.
They'll die from alcohol poisoning, almost certainly.
At least we can have a laugh about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, death has been a subject that I've been fascinated with since I was a child. I mean, it's something. I had my first near-death experience when I was 5. And it's funny because at this stage when I meet people, I see the difference between an adult and a child based on their understanding of mortality. Right? I've seen some 5-year-olds who are adults, and I've seen some 80-year-olds who are children. Because there are some people who still believe and leprechauns and Santa Claus and imaginary friends, and they're old, but they for some reason still believe in fantasy, which is fascinating. And I guess should I talk a little bit about the first time I died or almost died?
Why not?
Okay. Well, when I was young, this is where my obsession came from. I mean, it's where it started. So when I was 5. My parents went on a trip to India. We went to India and Nepal, and we spent quite a bit of time there, almost a year. And during that time, I went from 5 years old to 6 years old. And I can't remember if I was 5 going on 6 or if I was already 6 when it happened. But it was right around that time frame. I was in New Delhi, India, and I got something called the Delhi belly, which is a really aggressive form of amoebic dysentery. And it kills a lot of people. I mean, in the world right now, it's basically malaria is number 1. Number 2 is dysentery kills children.
What does it do to you? Just the diarrhea and dehydration?
Yeah. So what it does to children, especially in third world nations, is it causes heavy dehydration through vomiting and through diarrhea and through. I lost a third of my body weight. So and my parents, when they took me to the doctor, the first doctor they took me to told them that I was going to die. They're like, "I'm sorry. There's nothing we can do. It's too far gone. He's already lost too much weight. He's already lost too much. He's going to die." And my parents were like, "Wrong answer." And they took me to another doctor who was a little more Western. And he said, I'm not going to pretend this is bad. I mean, he's in a very bad shape, and, we'll do what we can do. And I didn't end up dying. But I do remember going through very heavy hallucinations. I hallucinated. Like I said, I lost a third of my body weight, and it took months. I mean, it was a very heavy experience. And when I came out of it on the other end, I changed. Like it changed me as a human being at a very early age. And I understood that I was going to die. At some point, it was coming for me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. And that was where the beginning of the obsession with this, my mortality kind of came from. And that's when I started catching rattlesnakes and started doing really kind of wild shit from a very early age. Like I started diving with sharks when I was 16. I started doing, I was jumping off roofs and I would like jumping off stuff as a little kid. And I loved playing with weapons and blowing stuff up and setting things on fire. I was a wild child. And a lot of it was wrapped around this concept of mortality and trying to understand. And since then, when I got into my like teen years at 18, I started dating a born-again Christian. I read the Bible and started learning about religions. And also when I was a kid, traveling through India and Nepal, I also learned about like Buddhism and different types of religions. So I've always found religion quite fascinating as well, because it deals with death and what people think about death. And, it's funny, now I'm 48 years old and I've developed a very strong opinion on death and what it is and what it means. And I guess the best way to describe like my concept is I was actually having a debate or a conversation, however you want to like. And we were actually doing promotion for the Point Break movie, and we were sitting in an airport after the whole promotion was over, and we were getting ready to fly home. And we were all just kind of sitting, getting ready to get on aircraft to fly home back to Los Angeles from Vegas. And she came over, sat next to me. She was a little tipsy, and she started asking me some questions about, like, what I thought about, like, religion, basically, and mostly like spiritualism. She got like kind of into this kind of spiritual thing because she's like, with the stuff that you do, and the fact that you face death the way you do, like, what do you believe? Like, do you think there's something afterwards? And so I go into a conversation basically explaining, no, I don't believe anything comes after, and that I do believe that when you die, the word is exactly, it's not ambiguous. It has a definition in the dictionary. It's not, there's no question what the word means. It doesn't mean you continue. It means you're dead. It's over. And it just so happens every language man has ever come up with has a word for it. And the word is not ambiguous in any of them. I mean, it's a very clear definition of what that word means. And then by the end of this kind of conversation, we're kind of like going back and forth and stuff. And she says, nobody really knows what happens when you die. That's what she said. And that's a statement that a person makes when they want to stop the conversation. They don't want to talk about this anymore. It's making them feel very uncomfortable, and they don't want to, they're like, okay, we're done. Nobody really knows. We're just going to have to agree to disagree kind of thing. And I have heard that my whole life. And all of a sudden, I'm like, you know what? I don't want the conversation to be over. I actually want this conversation to continue because I don't agree with you. I don't agree with that statement. I want to do a thought experiment with you, right? And what I want you to do is don't just reject what I'm about to say, because you're going to want to. Like, you're going to just want to, like, yeah, this is not. So what I want you to do is, instead of just rejecting it, I'm not even saying this is what I believe. I'm just saying this is an idea to think about, right? Accept it, don't accept it. That's not what this is. This is just listen to it and just see if you can hear it, right? So I'm going to make the argument that we absolutely know exactly what happens when we die. I'm not just saying me, I'm saying you. I'm saying every single person. Basically, every Homo sapien for the last 250,000 years has known what happens when we die. And not just Homo sapiens. You go back to Neanderthal. Neanderthal were burying their dead and burying them with flowers. They knew what happened when they died. And they get eaten by animals. So they try to bury them so they won't get eaten by animals. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And I think that's what's happened is and if Neanderthal is 800,000 years? I mean, it's a very long time we've understood death. And I think that humans don't like what we understand. We don't like what we know. It's terrifying to us. So what happens is we tell ourselves these really elaborate fairy tales. And we've developed thousands of them. I mean, if you go back in time, there are thousands and thousands of elaborate fairy tales to try to make ourselves feel better about death, and about what it is, because we don't actually really die. No, we go off to this magical place after we die and continue consciousness, which to me, I think that's not true. And I think that's why people get so upset when people die. And I've been to a lot of funerals. I've watched a lot of people die. I've been around a lot of death. I've experienced a lot of death. And what I always found very fascinating is that the more religious a family was, the worse they seemed to take it, which was really strange to me, because I'm always like, you would think that an agnostic or atheist family or a scientific family would take it worse because the person's dead, they're gone, they're never going to see them again. But for some reason, and through my experience, they've seemed to handle it better than the ones who are very religious. The times that I've gone to very religious ceremonies, everyone's crying, everyone's upset. And I'm kind of sitting there going, why would you be upset if you truly believe they weren't really dead? Like, if you really believe that, death is not the end and they're going someplace afterwards, why would you be upset at all? Actually, you should be kind of stoked for them. It's like, oh, they're off in a perfect place. I'm going to see them later. It doesn't make any difference. Who gives a shit? It's irrelevant, right? So I've never understood why religious people seem to take it so hard, whereas the people who are more atheist or more agnostic or more like scientific about things seem to take it a bit better. I don't really understand why that is, but it's something that I've noticed. So what it shows me is that a lot of people, say or really desperately want to believe there's something afterwards or something else, that death doesn't actually exist. It isn't actually real. But I have a feeling that most people know deep down that it is real, that death happens to all of us, and that it's really kind of upsetting for them.
Yeah, and I think it's like death. Once you accept it, I think it frees you in many different levels. And we've been talking about the samurai mentality, but often death is like the pink elephant in everyone's life, especially in the Western societies when we don't really talk about it, that it's a clean operation. But I think it's just an interesting point, like having to encounter a lot of death. That I think it changed. I'm not also a religious person, but I can see how religion has brought a lot of hope for a lot of people, and in that. I never want to crush anyone's belief system if they believe that there is a religion. Like, we can question whether it makes sense, and like, I think we do another podcast solely on religion. But going in the name of death, and I think we have to kind of reflect it through the 3777 perspective. Like, our symbols are like representing a grave, and that's where we're all going to end up. So to kind of give a positive twist for like a death. So is there any way that do you see that it has desensitized you in some ways to seeing it so much, or?
This is what I think. I think that death, I'm going to tell you what death is, right? I'm going to just tell you right now. This is not going to shock you. You're not going to be surprised, and you're not going to be like, oh, no, it's not. This is death. Death is you melting right back into the universe from where you came and being released from consciousness. It's that fucking simple. It really is that easy. And when you accept that reality, right, that you have a very small period of time to exist, let's say it's 50 years, let's say it's 100 years, let's say you're lucky and get 120, right? It's not that much time. And when you realize that it's limited, that's what gives that time value. That's what makes it matter. That's what makes it important. The reason why this conversation the three of us are having right now means something is because we can only have so many of them. And one day, we will be dead, and we will no longer be able to have these conversations. Now, if we lived forever, like if we died and went somewhere else, we could have these conversations for an eternity. This would be fucking pointless. I'll catch you in a million years. Let's talk about it then. I mean, who cares? It doesn't matter. It's fascinating because, the fact that it's limited is what makes it matter. The relationships that we have matter because we're going to, and you really start understanding that when you start losing people you actually care about. When my little sister died, I didn't really realize how important she was in my life until she was gone. And you hear this a lot. And I think that this is one of the reasons why people get so, like, religion becomes important, because until she died, I didn't fully understand religion. I didn't understand why people were so, they wanted it so bad and wanted to hang on to it so strong, because I was just like, I just don't get it. I don't understand why it's so important. But when she died, all of a sudden, I got it. I would have given anything to be able to talk to her one more time, to be able to see her one more time and be able to have the conversation that I didn't have while she was alive. And it was a powerful feeling that I cannot even put into words. It was upsetting because, I've watched so many people die. I mean, over 100 good friends. I've watched over 200 base jumpers, who are buddies of mine, people I knew, people I hung out with, people I had dinners with, who all died. I mean, it's hundreds. And it's, I thought that I understood death. I thought that I got it. But then when she died, all of a sudden, that's when I was like, oh, this yearning of like wishing I could see her again, wishing I could speak to her again, wishing that there was something afterwards. I'm like, I get it now. I can understand. I don't believe it, but I can understand why others would like it to be real. You know, so best way to describe it, to answer your question, it's like, you know, I actually don't have an answer for that question.
But I think it's like a lot of people are talking about the fear of death, and I've been reading a different perspective on it. But I think ultimately, we're going to die the way we lived. And I think that taps into the courage with the 777 and that what we've been preaching around. Because if your life is full of fear and hesitation and anger, like most likely on that deathbed, those are going to be your thoughts and your kind of those that's going to be reflected. But if you approach everything with courage and with curiosity and have like gratitude and love in your heart, then usually if you have that mindset, that probably follows you when the final curtain comes to us.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's something, it's like a wake-up call. People kind of have to train themselves to have that acceptance.
But it's always like, you don't want to live with regret. That's something that we're not going to ever have, like regret in the deathbed. Yeah. And when you talk about a lot of the nurses at elderly homes, when they're there for the final moments of when someone's dying, it's hardly ever about the things that they did. It's almost always about the regret, the things that they pushed aside.
The things they didn't do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's a great point. I mean, again, it's like, that's why we have 777 and we have this growing communities. I think people are understanding more in this day and age that life is precious. There's not much time. Like you said, you might think 80 years or 90 years is a lot of time, but we all know it's not. So to sit there and sit back and go, I wish I'd done something or I wish I should have, it's like you just can't.
You know, there's something that I have a kind of a unique perspective on death as well, because I've had so many near-death experiences. And it's funny too, because I've had so many near-death experiences, I can't count them. It's beyond my ability to count. I have literally hundreds and hundreds of them. But I have actually 2 death experiences where my heart stopped and I stopped breathing. I've drowned and I've frozen, and I've done both. And what's fascinating is, you know, you hear people tell these incredibly remarkable near-death experience stories where they talk about tunnels and seeing relatives and, you know, all these really remarkable things, right? And they get this wonderful peace and they speak to some super being or, you know, and this is what I'm going to tell you about all of those. They're all full of shit. And the reason why they're all full of shit is because when you go through a traumatic experience, you want to know what the number one thing that's not very accurate? Your memory. Your memory gets, I mean, we're just talking someone steals your wallet. You can't remember what the guy looks like. I mean, it's that friggin' simple. So when you're in the process of dying, your memory is dog shit. And I can tell you from experience that my memory of those experiences are not accurate. They can't be, because I just know how memory works. And so the more complicated a near-death experience story is, the more fabricated it is. And I'm not saying that they're lying. I'm not saying that that's what it is. I'm saying that they are creating memories. What's really interesting is when you have a near-death experience, the number one thing that happens is everyone wants to know about it. All of a sudden, you become super interesting. People want to hear, well, so what happened when you died? Like, what happens afterwards? Everyone wants to know, right? And I'll say this. I've been around people who've had a near-death experience. And you want to know the number one thing they say when they come back is?
No.
Where am I? What's happening? They don't even know what the fuck is going on. Most of the time, they can't even recite their own name. They don't know what day it is. It's like when a person gets knocked unconscious. They don't remember what the hell's happening. And that was me. Like when I came back, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And my memories from before and my memories after actually fold over each other. And things that I thought happened after happened before, and things that happened before happened after, and in my whole mind. And so I have these really intricate memories of what happened now, but they came after the fact. I started remembering them later, which was really interesting, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure how many of those memories are real, or how many of them are from me telling the story over and over and over again. And I've noticed that the stories from the people that I was with when it first happened and them not remembering jack shit, and then all of a sudden they start remembering. And then 5 years down the road, it is the most unbelievable story you're ever going to hear. And you're sitting there going, dude, none of that. I mean, you didn't say any of that when it happened. None of it. So, I'm not saying they're lying. I don't think they are. I think that they are remembering things. And now, let's just say some of my memories are real. Let's just say that I actually am remembering some things from this accident. Well, how many of you have ever had a dream? Like every friggin' night, where you can create whole universes and create whole environments and whole new people and see your grandma and your grandpa and see people who've been dead and whatever. In dreams, you can create anything. And in the process of dying, there's a very interesting thing, and then this is something I can remember from going through the experience, is as you're dying, it's quite painful. Both my times were. Drowning was painful, and freezing was actually quite painful too.
What people say when you drown, like, is it, because then they say that's probably the least painful way to go. Once you start breathing in and out, then it kind of a doze off. Do you remember, or? It
was quite painful leading up to that. So yes, the same thing with freezing. Freezing was very painful in the beginning, but then you go numb. Right, so let's just go with the freezing one. I was 10 years old, fell through ice. My friends had to carry me, drag me almost 3 miles back to my house. By the time I got there, I was purple and not breathing, and my heart wasn't going. As far as that's what I know from being told, right? Because I was gone. I don't remember any of that shit. I remember waking up, being dropped in what felt like boiling water. Turns out my parents had dropped me in cold water, and then they slowly started introducing warm water, and the shock of hitting the water, like, shocked me back into like existence, I guess. But my memory, and again, take it with a grain of salt, because I do, but I remember falling through the ice and it feeling like burning needles going through my skin. I felt like I was on fire. And then I remember, like, luckily the water was shallow. It was only up to like my chest, and I was able to like grab on and pull myself out and get to the shore. And I remember trying to pull my clothes off. Like, I remember I felt like I wanted to take my clothes off. So I started trying to take my clothes off. And my friends, we were little. We were 10 years old. We were like, and they wouldn't let me take my clothes off. And I'm just like, and I don't know why I was trying to take it off, really, because I wasn't really burning, right? But it felt like I was burning. Yeah. And I'm just like, I got to get the clothes off. And they're like, no, leave those on.
That's why you find naked people at Mount Everest, because, they have the same
You start taking your clothes off. I don't know why, but they wouldn't let me take my clothes off. And then we started moving, like we knew we needed to go. But I didn't get very far. Like, it may be 5-10 minutes before I started getting really tired. And the pain went away, and it became kind of numb. Like, I remember becoming numb, and actually started feeling warm. It was weird. I started kind of feeling like this warmth coming over me, and I got really tired. And I remember sitting down and being like, just go get my parents, bring them back. And they're like, no, we can't leave you here. I'm like, just go get them, bring them back. I can't walk anymore. And then I remember laying down, and I remember each one grabbing a foot and starting to drag me. And then I can kind of remember laying back, and I remember looking up, and I remember seeing trees kind of like slowly moving. And I remember just and everything was very peaceful and super calm and very relaxing. And I was like, it felt so good. Like, I just felt great, actually. And then it started kind of like getting dark around the edges, like vignetting, and slowly getting darker. And then it just went to black. And then,
when did the flames come?
Well, that's what's kind of funny, because, when you go to sleep, time has passed, right? Like, there's been time between you putting your eyes closed and opening them. Time has passed. You don't really know how much, but you know that there's been time. From the time it went black to the time I was awake again, there was no time. There was nothing. There's literally, like I said, things that I thought happened before happened after, and things I thought happened after happened before, and it kind of like time folded on itself. So that space doesn't exist. It's just gone. Like, there's nothing. Like, and it's hard to even wrap your head around what nothing is. Like, we don't understand nothing because we don't exist in nothing. There's always something, So it's very hard for us to wrap our head around the concept of nothingness. I guess the best way to describe it is, there was billions of years before you were born. What was going on? What do you remember from that? Right? Well, that's what you're going to remember after you're gone. Same thing. There's billions of years before you're born. There's going to be billions of years, if not trillions, after you're gone. And whatever you remembered from before birth is probably what you're going to know about and remember after it. And I think that this experience of consciousness, to go back to this story with this executive, she starts talking, she's like, well, the soul. And I'm like, well, why don't you explain what that is? Can you explain to me what you mean by the word soul? Like, what is that? And she's like, well, it's kind of your essence. It's like who you are. And I'm like, well, okay, let's just, for the sake of argument, is that thing that if, it's like making decisions, and if it's good, it makes good decisions, God will judge that, and then you get to go to heaven. Or if you're bad and you make bad decisions, God judges that and it goes to hell. I mean, is that what you're going with? She's like, well, I'm not really religious, but I guess she said she was spiritual. So it was like a different kind of thing. But she's like, I guess, yeah, it's you. It's your essence. It's who you are. And I'm like, well, if that's how you're describing a soul, I can basically disprove that instantly, like right now, like very easily. And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, lobotomy. Why is it that I can go into your brain, damage your frontal lobe, and change you fundamentally, change you as a human being, change the decisions you're going to make in your life, whether they're good or bad? I knew a guy, 20 years old. He was a construction worker, super nice guy, totally normal. He was kind of a fun dude, funny. He fell, landed on his head, damaged his brain, and became a different human being. Completely. Like, not even, dude, not the same guy, right? So if I can damage your brain and fundamentally change you as a human, then how can you pretend your consciousness is separate from your brain? How can you pretend that that literally your consciousness doesn't come from your brain?
I know, that's a good point.
I mean, that's so for me, and then I had someone, I was like using this argument on someone recently, and she didn't know what to say. She's like, you know what? I'm a little tipsy. I'm going to need to go home. I'm going to do some research. We're going to have this conversation again. And I'm like, dude, anytime. I love talking about this, right? But I was telling this argument to someone recently, and their argument was, well, what if the brain is just an antenna? And this antenna is actually your consciousness is floating in the ether out there in the universe. And your antenna, when you damage that, then that's what's causing the difference in personality. And I'm like, okay, show me anything that supports that. Like, if that were true, right? If your brain is just an antenna picking up a signal, show me the fucking signal, right? Show me where the signal's coming from. Use some form of technology, some form of anything that can...
Yeah, that's my skeptic history coming. So if every time you make exceptional claims, you have to have exceptional evidence.
Exactly.
And I think in this case, there were not any.
Well, no, that's the thing. People have a tendency to try to figure out ways to make it work so that their belief system or worldview doesn't get shooken. Like that they are able to, so they have to come up, they are working backwards from a problem, right? Okay, so the brain damage shows that a soul is basically nonsense, right? Your thoughts, your dreams, your process, your consciousness is the function of your brain. So that's millions of years of evolution using your senses to make sense of the world around you, the reality that exists outside of yourself. And the consciousness is the processor. It's processing all this information and keeping memories and making it all make sense so that you can make sense of the universe, right? Make sense of your existence, make sense of reality. That's what consciousness is. It's the function of the brain. The higher functions of your brain are consciousness, period. The end. It's super simple. So I start damaging those processes and I damage your ability to perceive reality. It's that simple. You can see it with people who take LSD or psychedelic drugs or drink alcohol or it affects the mind's ability to process information. I mean, it's so crystal clear obvious, right? But the problem is even though it's super crystal clear obvious, people don't want it to be because what that means then is that death is real. What that means then is that when they die, it's over. And they do not like that. So they will reject it like as hard as they can. And that's why throughout my life, having these conversations with people, you see people reject. That's why I say, just try to be open-minded. You don't have to believe it, but just be open-minded to think. Don't just reject instantly, I mean, I didn't just reject religion instantly. I read the Bible cover to cover, every word in it. I've studied religions throughout my entire life. I've traveled the world. I've hung out with Buddhist monks in Nepal, in literally the monkey temple. Like, it's literally sitting there with them. I have spent time with religious people. I dated a born-again Christian for 4 years. I was around her and her family having these discussions nonstop. I mean, talking to all of her pastors. I mean...
How'd those discussions go?
Oh, they were so much fun. I mean, it's funny because I enjoy this conversation.
Yeah.
I think it's when you can get people to have a conversation and really talk about this. I like making people feel a little bit uncomfortable. And this is an uncomfortable topic. right? This is something that really frightens people, and it really upsets people, especially when you get into the religious aspect of it, depending on the religion, right? Some are a little more open, some are not, and I've noticed that the people who get the most aggressive, I think, are the ones who believe it the least, because they're the ones struggling. Let me put it this way. People can say anything they want to me about my belief system. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't care what they think I think, or if they believe me or agree with me. It's freaking irrelevant. I'm totally comfortable with my thought process. I'm comfortable with who I am and what I believe, and what I feel like I know. Because let's be honest here, the word know, all that means is I really, 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 really believe it. That's all no means, right? It means I really, 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 really believe it based on whatever you're going to put forward as your belief, right? So my beliefs I'm comfortable with. So if somebody challenges it, I don't get upset, ever. I never get upset. Yet when someone gets upset when you challenge their religious beliefs, what that tells me is you don't believe it.
Interesting.
You're not fully confident and comfortable in that belief system, because you can't take someone challenging you. You don't feel so confident and comfortable in it. And I've also noticed that, especially with born-again Christians, they're one of my most fun, because they're the most obviously nonsense ones. They contradict themselves so much, and the Bible is in a constant state of contradiction that you can so easily dismantle. And you can easily this is what you believe. This is what you believe. This is what you believe. So what about this? And you just see them break down. And it's, for me, very enjoyable. I get enormous amount. But again, it's fun. It's a fun subject. I like to watch people get uncomfortable. I like to make them think. And it's interesting to see, oh, you don't really believe what you say you do. That's fascinating to me, that you live your whole life based on this. And it's fascinating because your time is limited, and you're wasting so much of it on nonsense. And that's the thing. That's why I say, I've met 5-year-olds. I was one of them who understand death. And as far as I'm concerned, I was an adult at 5 years old. And I've met some 80-year-olds who still believe in leprechauns. And you're just like, dude, because let me put it this way. There is just as much evidence to support a leprechaun as there is any God. The end. That's the truth. There is no evidence to support either of them. And, if you're going to start building, let's be real here. This is what we know. Right? This is based on sight, smell, taste, hearing, our senses. This is what we know. With technology, we know this much. Right? That's kind of what we can talk about, right? You go that direction in infinite, you go that direction in infinite. That's what we don't know. But the second you start guessing outside of what we know, everything becomes as valid as everything else. Jesus becomes as valid as Muhammad, becomes as valid as Cthulhu, becomes as valid as Thor, becomes as valid as a leprechaun took a shit in a hat and that created the universe. They're all just as likely, right? Because it's people just pulling crap out of their ass and making it up. It's just made up shit. And what's fascinating is, they're like, that's not made up. It's written in a book. Written by people making shit up. Let's be serious. Fiction is fiction. And what really good fiction does is it takes real, historical events and peppers them into the nonsense to make it more believable. It's so obvious.
What was your one? I think now we're doing 2 episodes. We do our religion and
no, don't worry. I got a lot more.
But what was the 3 different religions, 3,000 of them, and then find out
Well, Ricky Gervais actually said it, and it's a spectacular argument. And the argument is, there are over 3,000 religions that we know of, right? And a religious person, let's just say it's a Christian, they believe in one of them. But they don't believe in 2,999. They can see how 2,999 religions are made up, nonsense, and wrong. Yet for some odd reason, they can't take that same skeptical eye about, let's just say, Muslims or Scientology or Cthulhu, right? Pick one of the thousands of them. They can have a skeptical eye and understand why those are all made up nonsense, but they can't take that same eye and look at their own. And that's the funny thing is when people say, they call me an atheist. I'm actually agnostic. I'm an agnostic atheist. That practically I don't believe in God, but I'm an agnostic, so I don't know. It's agnosticism based on knowledge. If all of a sudden somebody came to me with evidence that was irrefutable, that God existed, well, of course I'll believe it. I mean, I'm not a dumbass. I mean, you're going to believe reality when it's presented to you properly. You know?
Then I have a book for you to read.
Okay, I'll read it. I'll read it. But the point is, if you have refutable evidence that supports it, and it's like, you know, then of course, I mean, that's what makes me an agnostic. I think in a logical, scientific way. But what's fascinating is, people who basically have one religion and they don't believe the other 2,999, technically, they are atheists to 2,999 religions.
Yeah.
They only believe in the one, right? But they do not believe in any of the others. And all it takes to be an atheist is you don't believe in God. And there's 2,909 gods they don't believe in. So they're like 99.999% atheists, which is fascinating. They can't wrap their head around that concept.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I think this was our most controversial episode so far.
I'm still thinking about it.
And so then to kind of roll it back to this, it's like, yes, if you don't want to gamble on religion, what's in the afterlife, it's important to pack as many great memories here, and you live your life with gratitude and love. And when you're in the deathbed, is to kind of see the world from that perspective. And then maybe there is.
Well,
look,
I just want to say, you want to look back on your life and you want to live a life well lived. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. You want to try to have as many spectacular, happy, smiley moments as you can, and you want to try to minimize the sad, frowny, terrible ones. That's really, it's that simple. You just want to live a happy life. And all I can say is by being a good person and treating people right and loving the people that are in your life, that's how you do it, And you don't need you don't need fairies to understand how beautiful a garden is. You can understand how beautiful your life is just by accepting the reality of what it is and what you know. I mean, we know what happens when you die. I don't agree. I'd say as far as things being knowable, like you can know something, it's as knowable as anything can be. We have more evidence to support what death is than anything else in the world. Period. The end. There's a saying, there's two things in life, death and taxes. That's it, and that is accurate.
Yeah. Well, look, if there is an afterlife, it'll just be a bonus. If you've lived a good life, you know what I mean? If you
Yeah, so pack into this life with the fashion. Now it's just finding a way out. So subscribe us for even more controversial subjects. And we'll keep posting them. So here we go. Leave your comments. We'd like to hear your opinion and participate in the conversation that way.
There will be a lot of them.
Yeah, look, as Zero said, please subscribe to the 3777 for more chaos and comedy. And also head over to 3777.com to get our exclusive merchandise and to check everything out. Oh, you motherfucker.
Well, that was a nice end. So.
That's a way to end. We're a little fried, but everything else at 3777.com. All right, everybody, we appreciate you. Take care. Stay safe.
God bless.